Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Public Education for the City of Savannah and the County of Chatham. I would ask if this meeting was posted, but I've been assured by our, and Kurt Hediger has certified that yes, it has. So if we all would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I will now accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you.
Make a motion to amend the approved agenda with the deletion of item 7.15, bid 2442, small construction labor projects under 100,000 annual contract, and to add item 7.33, superintendent's annual contract.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay. All right. Quite a few announcements today. Well, I'm not going to do that first announcement because it says that the district will be closed July 1st through July 5th. So we don't need to make that announcement. We were closed then, by the way. Sorry. Wednesday, July 17th is Sophie, which is our welcome to all new teachers to the district. That's the new teacher orientation. It starts at 8 a.m. at Jenkins High School. Also on Wednesday, July 17th is our Capital Improvement Committee meeting here at the Whitney Complex. July 20th is our Back to School Expo at the Savannah Civic Center. And July 22nd is our Back to School Media Day at the David Edwards Harris Educational Complex. July 23rd is our Board Accountability Committee meeting at 3:30 here at Whitney. Our Audit Committee meets on July 25th here at Whitney. Here we go. The district continues to seek methods for maximizing building efficiency and fiscal responsibility. In support of this effort, SCC PSS will implement a 4-day work schedule Monday through Thursday, starting, yeah, that's ending soon, sorry. Well, it started Monday, June 3rd, and it ends Friday. So, hope you enjoy it. And our last announcement, we would like to announce that the board has completed the annual superintendent's evaluation process with a successful evaluation of Dr. Watts. Her contract will be revised accordingly. We look forward to continued progress of our school district under her leadership. And remembrances. Washington, okay, Trayvon Washington Duncan, student at Beach High School, date of passing 5/18/24. Lucille Holloway, a school counselor clerk at Myers, date of passing 6/15/2024. Robert Rogers Tolbert, fleet mechanic and transportation, date of passing 6/27/24. And Lee Edis Tyson, a student at Savannah High School, date of passing 7/7/24. If we could all please stand for a moment of silence. And now we'll have good news from our superintendent.
Good afternoon. I am excited to have good news reports, even though school is out. Our students are not in school. There are still many great things happening across the district. And the first, I would like to acknowledge our hats off to our Board of Education Police Department. Another successful Operation 15 is in the books. Operation 15 is a summer camp for students to build social skills, learn how to solve problems, explore careers, and have a lot of fun along the way. Over 30 students took part in this experience, so I'd like to extend a big thank you to Chief Enoch, Deputy Chief Graves, Deputy Chief Rodriguez, and all the officers who supported this program. The Georgia Department of Education and Georgia Department of Economic Development have partnered to award Why Georgia Works alignment grants to help 15 Georgia school districts, including our very own Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools, improve the alignment of their CTAE programs with local industry needs. Way to go, CTAE team. Congratulations to Kelly Coleman and Mohed Asami, both members of the Savannah Arts Academy class of 2024, for winning certificates of excellence, which also included $750 in prize money, in the 2024 International Art Effect Competition sponsored by the Lowell Milken Center. The international competition invited students in grades 6 through 12 to explore and champion the stories of unsung heroes. Just 20 middle and high school students were selected for this honor, and in addition to the cash prize, award winners will have their project showcased in the LMC website and displayed in the Hall of Unsung Heroes in Fort Scott, Kansas. The White House Historical Association will host its 9th annual White House History Teacher Institute this summer. And with that comes a special 2-week separate immersive education experience. SCCPSS Specialist for Elementary Social Studies teacher Tamika Courtney McClinton will be among just 30 educators nationwide to be selected for the class. Congratulations, Ms. McClinton. And our staff and principals and assistant principals and teachers continue to excel. I'd like to do a final acknowledgement to Myers Middle School Assistant Principal Marissa Johnson, who presented at the Governor's School Leadership Academy Annual Summit at Callaway Gardens this summer. State and district leader principals and aspiring principals attended this summit. Ms. Johnson's presentation, entitled Creating a Collective Efficacy Through an Instructional Literacy Plan, detailed the journey Myers Middle School embarked upon during the 23-24 school year to meet the school's literacy goal of increasing the percentage of students reading on grade level to 50% per grade level. So kudos to Ms. Marissa Johnson as well as to Myers Middle School for that great accomplishment. Kudos to Lieutenant David London and the team who led our junior ROTC cadets through the Cadet Leadership Challenge Camp this summer. This year's JLDC experience included science, technology, engineering, and mathematics activities. This year, the Academy focused on the aviation industry and included visits to Gulfstream, the Savannah Hilton Head International Airport, and the aviation campus of Savannah Technical College, Georgia Southern University, and Georgia Tech. Also, congratulations to our communications team, who are celebrating another banner year of awards from the National School Public Relations Association. NSPRA recognizes outstanding education publications, newsletters, videos, podcasts, websites, social media, and more. The small but mighty comms team earned accolades in every category entered, 4 honorable mentions, 2 awards of merit, and 3 awards of excellence. Sorry about that. The Georgia School Board Association met in Savannah last month, and Jenkins student Alan Zing, class of 24, delivered an exceptional address. You may remember Alan as he was the Superintendent Student of the Month in February. Alan wowed the audience and will certainly go on to do great things at Georgia Tech this fall. Thank you, Alan, for making us so proud. And finally, a round of applause for 3 seniors who received scholarships from the Society of Women Engineers. Melina Bringman, who will attend Georgia Tech this fall. Shania Sims, attending Kennesaw State University, and Kylie Quillian, also attending Georgia Tech. All 3 of these ladies graduated from Jenkins High School this year. We are so proud of them as they pursue their next steps and dreams in engineering. That concludes the good news headlines for this month, and I'll pass the agenda back over to our board chair.
And Mr. Hediger.
Yes, sir. Moving on in your agenda into Board of Education matters, we have a few policies that are coming in front of the board for this agenda. A number of them are first readers. We do have one that is regulation only, but to begin the overview, 6.01 is Board Policy GBO, Professional Personnel Resignation. You'll see here in this first read, a little bit of work was done on this primarily to clean up process so that we very explicitly state the process for submitting a letter of resignation. Previous language had the letter going directly into the superintendent and bypassed some important steps. So we clarified that with very clear language. So this is a first read, 4-year review.
Yes, Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you. I sent a couple of questions about this policy. The first one I have is more of a concern about having to submit a letter of resignation to your supervisor, because your supervisor may be why you're resigning. And so having that process rely on that person doesn't have the level of independence that some employees may need. Why is it not that they can submit the letter to Human Resources and CC their supervisor?
Let me answer that. I think most of the time, I think there may be situations that you're identifying, Dr. Hoskins-Brown, but we do get resignation letters sent directly to us when the employee wants it to come to us. We're talking about the most common is for the employee to submit it to their supervisor. But there are situations where an employee will decide to not go that process, and that's fine, as long as we know that they're leaving.
Okay, so that is allowable?
So yeah, it is allowable.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then the other question I have is about the addition of the sentence that says, at the very end, where written notice of resignation is not provided, the first day absent will be deemed the date of termination of employment. So is that the first day absent where they don't come back? Or is it the first day, like,
It's the first day they're not at work. So the first day, we may have somebody that doesn't report, and they haven't reported for 5 days. We're going by that first day that they didn't
That's what I
report.
mean. So the first day of a continuous permanent absence.
Yes.
Okay, we might want to state that, because right now it
Okay.
just says first day absent, and if they come back, it doesn't say, it as it's written, it doesn't seem to mean when you leave and don't come back. It just looks like an unexcused absence.
Okay, we can look at it.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Kind of want to go piggyback on what Dr. Hoskins-Brown said about the letter. I also know of situations where there have been members of staff who've given their direct supervisor the letter and they hold it for a while and they don't actually turn it into HR. Is there I think there kind of does need to be some sort of checks and balances. I know a lot of times they get these letters at the end of the school year when they're busy trying to close everything up. However, there needs to be these people who are ready to move on to the next part of their lives. Some of them feel kind of handcuffed by not seeing their names in board docs or whatever it might be.
Also, reading this, the language says must submit. Do we want to work on that language? It says must submit the letter of resignation to their immediate supervisor. So we're not really, the language is not giving an out. Yes.
Yes,
Howard Hall.
I know that there is an exit procedure that we have when a person resigns, and that would be more of something that would go in a regulation. Is there a regulation that is accompanied by this policy?
This policy does not have a reg tied to it, so these are all policy language revisions.
Because I know things such as returning keys,
Yeah.
returning equipment,
Yeah.
computer equipment, things as far as an exit procedure.
Yeah, and we may, as I'm hearing this narrative, I think that having the flexibility component built into the language that gives the employee the ability to submit it to either their supervisor, immediate supervisor, or to the HR department, we can do that. We can fix that by language. I do think we can also make references to our administrative type documents that we have through the HR department, such as how we manage the turning in of keys and the exit process. So while it's not necessarily, we can write a mention of that in the policy, that things shall be governed through that process. That way we get it out there in the public and the staff knows that there is a back-end administrative document that has further specific components for reference.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Move on.
Excellent. So first reader, we'll continue to work on that and bring it back for a second read in August. Moving on to your next item, 6.02. This is a 4-year process review for the Board of Public Education. Again, this ends up being a first reader for you. This is professional personnel retirement. So we go from the resignation component into the retirement component. So bundling these thematic components together. You'll notice in this one that there were some outdated references of retirement systems that we needed to clean up in the language, and also in the regulation there was some content in there written all the way back to 1956. Which we're certainly very far beyond that. So it was a matter of cleaning that up. It was no longer relevant, and we have taken those components out of the policy and the regulation that just don't have relevance anymore. First read.
Ms. Grabowski.
And I don't know that this is anything to change in the regulation, but just this morning we were talking about retirement for bus drivers. And since that's mentioned here, is that anything that that needs to be, I don't know, the public school retirement system, is there any additional policy or implications as we're looking at compensation that may need to be considered, or, and it may be once we come back?
Yeah,
So-
for other staff areas. Go,
I
Mr.
mean,
Ray.
the Georgia law dictates the
Dictates that.
the retirement system, so that's why we are just,
Okay.
we used to have a local retirement system back in, and it ended in 1956. But we've been following Georgia law, which is to have the teacher retirement system of Georgia and to also have the public school retirement system. And those are just the only two. And those classes of employees and bus drivers, school nutrition, custodians are, under Georgia law, can only be in public, PSERS, the public school retirement system. There's nothing we can do about that, about them being in the state system. Whether locally we decide to do something different for all employees or groups of employees, that's something that, we can decide to do, but it wouldn't change the fact that they would only be eligible for what's listed by the state.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Hearing no other comments, moving along in your agenda, we have item 6.03. This is a 4-year review, also a first reader for the Board of Public Education. JCAB, this is interviews and searches of students. So we do have a policy and regulation language here in this particular review. You'll see in this one some simple changes. Really, the policy side is not sure how this language got in there, but there was a reference to visitors. And that visitor components, as how visitors come into our schools, is governed in a different policy code section. This is to clean that up. That doesn't necessarily need to be in there because we're talking about the searches of students in this policy code section. So that's been deleted. And then there were some updates on the regulation side with those who may be involved in the screening, for example, of our security measures, but they can't act in the capacity of an official law enforcement officer. That's been clarified in the regulation. So this is part of our 4-year review, and first reader will come back to the board for adoption in August.
Mr. Johnson, then Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Real quick, since on the regulation under section 7, we've added district computers, so we all put district electronic devices, because that could be computers and tablets, and it kind of gets the whole gambit of that. It doesn't change the meaning of it, but it specifies it more, because this is saying that it says personal electronic devices and then just district computers.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So for example, if we are using iPads at a school, that may not necessarily fall into someone's realm of definition of a computer as opposed to a device. I think we can easily put in parens or a slash there that says district computers and devices or something like that. We'll work with technology staff to verify to make sure we capture all reference components of what we provide that would be subject to this policy area.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you. And thank you for the explanation of why the employees and visitors line was deleted. And I happen to believe in policy redundancy, because anyone who's looking this up is not trying to go find the other policy that refers to someone else. But I mean, I don't have a high objection to it being deleted. My question is that this policy refers to students who are having custody of students who are in attendance during the school day. It would be rare, but there's a possibility to be a student at a facility that's not your school, and you would be both a student and a visitor. And what I'm concerned about is when there is a search going on, it's a high-tension environment. And you don't need people arguing about whether or not they should be searched. Like, people who are the campus police or other authorities don't need to be quibbling with individuals. And I recall a circumstance where a young learner was at a facility and got in trouble because the learner had been dismissed, though the learner was not in school. The learner was sitting on a bench waiting to be picked up. And some stuff jumped off, and a search came in, and the officers came over and said, you have to do this and you have to do that, and we're about to search. And the learner was like, I'm not in school. I'm sitting on this bench. I've been dismissed. I'm just here because I'm waiting on my ride. So the learner got in trouble for not complying with the instructions. But the learner was following the line of thought that I'm no longer under the custody of the school because I have been checked out, signed out, dismissed, and I'm waiting on a parent. That's going to be a very unusual scenario, but I think that we have the opportunity to minimize confusion by making our policies much more comprehensive so that everybody knows what's going on in that kind of scenario, or in a scenario where you have several students, maybe siblings of another student, that are in the lobby. When a search is going on, do you search them or do you not? And what confusion gets developed because they're students, but they're not enrolled at that school.
Ms. Grabowski.
Doesn't that last sentence of the first paragraph say students and property located on board property? So wouldn't that include at any
Is it a
time?
student?
I think, I mean, to me, it would include any student
The
on
first
board
sen-
property.
The first sentence says custody of students in attendance during the school day. The second one says students and property.
Are subject to cert, so maybe some clarification, yeah.
We can use some clarification on that. When they're on school property, would be more comprehensive to include no matter where they are.
Thank you, Chief. But shouldn't everybody on, and maybe that's my philosophy, if you're on school property and we have deemed that we need to search, why are we excluding? Because obviously we we search everybody, right? If we
Well-
feel like we need to?
When there's police intervention, you have legal right considerations.
Okay.
Fourth and Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment rights in search and seizure. So it's all circumstantial. It depends on what's going on when it comes to administratively, it's involving students. Administrators have a right to, based on a reasonable suspicion, to do a little bit more than police, but depending on the circumstances
Okay.
and what's happening. It's all about safety of the school, safety of the campus, safety of the students in general.
Okay, thank you. So that's the kind of stuff that I don't know that helps me understand why this policy is being built this way. So thank you.
Mrs. Skabrowski.
Would it be inappropriate to simply put a cross-reference to the policy that addresses school employees and visitors? And in that
no,
way,
that-
it helps that redundancy?
It would not be inappropriate to do that. I mean, even, this was our eyeglass and cleanup just for clarity, but, hearing the discussion and the example that was provided, it's really, it provides a bit more of a robust feeling on the multiple intricacies of things that happen in a general school day that you don't want to handcuff yourself by very strict policy language. But you are right. I mean, there is language in there that does cover us to say that students are subject. So we do have some flexibility there, but I do think that as we've done in other policies, we could put like disclaimer type language that just frankly says any person that enters the ground is subject to, if the conditions call for it, search, which is as applicable by all state laws and codes, et cetera, and further defined in policy, and we'll cross-reference it. So we're happy to go back and look at that again to get that. In fact, I see it kind of like a disclaimer type language, even though this is really about students, but as a matter of the broad safety scope and a full awareness, we can certainly look at it to cross-reference other existing policies.
Absolutely.
Mr. Kashmar.
Yeah, along those lines, the fourth paragraph, board reserves the right to use walk-through and handheld metal detectors or sniff dogs at any school campus or function. I would just add a global catch-all disclaimer and other items deemed appropriate. I mean, we're putting in cameras, et cetera, so who knows what else we're going to use. Whatever else we might use, put a catch-all in there.
No one else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent. As we said, this is a first reader, so we'll continue to work on this and bring it back for a second in August board agenda. Finally, on your Board of Education matters, item 6.04. This is policy EEE Wellness. And this particular policy is coming to you as a review. The only changes here are the regulations. So this would not be coming back for a second read by the board. This is all administrative regulation changes. And what the primary changes here were to update the language to get the proper titles of individuals who have oversight over the wellness committee. There was some outdated language in there of an old title that no longer exists. And we do have new individuals who are now employed within the school district that are also very appropriate. The wellness coordinator, for example, which makes very good sense logistically for having playing a role in the oversight of the wellness committee. The further language that was updated, and this was in part due to some of the reviews that was going on in the school nutrition program, is regulatory language that speaks to federal laws under the Smart Snacks provision. Should there be an exemption required for, say, a fundraiser that a school would like to have? We now have stipulated in here a clear process for how that works and how that will be monitored. So all the changes here are regulation only, and we're bringing it to the board for the board's awareness.
Ms. Grabowski.
I know, surprise, right? So I appreciate the additions made in the regulation to expand the committee members to include counseling, school nutrition staff, which is already there, et cetera. The policy, however, is still hyper-focused only on food, which food is, of course, very important, but that is only one component of wellness. And I think this is with the establishment of our wellness center and the increased recognition of the importance of overall student health and well-being, physical, social, mental, that this is a really great opportunity to really make this policy much more robust and holistic. So I would really love to see this policy elevated to be more expansive and all-encompassing, and including some of the details that are in the regulation in the actual policy itself, with the idea of the whole child that's mentioned in our strategic plan. In addition, the Wellness Committee has not met in quite some time, and I know that's largely due to staff changes. But I think it's probably been, 2 years? Yeah, it's been at least a couple of years. So I think with the reestablishment of the Wellness Committee, this is a really great time. And I would also love, and the first paragraph of the regulation states that this policy is supposed to be reviewed by the Wellness Committee. So that did not happen before it came here to the board. So I would really love for us to take this to the Wellness Committee as defined. So if we need to adopt it so that we can kind of reestablish the Wellness Committee, I'm fine with that. But I would really like for us to revisit both the policy and the regulation in the very near future. I'd like for us to go ahead and update the policy to be more holistic, but then to look at the regulation in a lot more detail in conjunction with the Wellness Committee to elevate a culture of health and well-being throughout the district. There are a couple things in here that I think we need to look at in particular, one of which is the use of foods which are not smart snacks as incentives. It's way too common in our culture. There's been a lot of publicity lately about how harmful highly processed foods are. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to try and start to address this more holistically throughout the culture of our district. So sorry for the soapbox, but it's a big deal to me.
Dr. Hoskins Brown.
Yeah, so I agree with much of what Ms. Grabowski said. I think what's not clear is what's the future-looking vision of how the Wellness Committee is going to work, because the Wellness Committee used to be a more public committee. It had community members and board members. We served on that committee, and we reviewed these materials, very similar to audit, where it was a partnership type committee. And it was decided over time that a lot of the things that we were trying to work on were managed operationally, and it needed to be moved more into operations with guests, fewer community members, more staff members who worked on it, because the community members, community and board members, we would sit around and we'd talk about these things that we think are really important, that were really well formed, but we were not completely literate about district processes that would make our recommendations work. So it got moved into a district committee. So what is unclear to me is, I assumed it was just a district committee now, and that we didn't have that level of participation from the community. If we're supposed to have that level of participation, I don't know if that's clearly understood. And there may still be people, like, I hate to say it, but with the county, I'm on a committee for the county that hasn't met in like 10 years. I think that committee is dead, but I think that other people think that committee still exists. So if it's a public committee and we have stakeholders out there who want to contribute and have ideas, we need to reach out and let them know. if it's not going to be that kind of committee as it has been operating, we need to let people know, and we need to use the processes, we need to modify our processes so that it's not getting approved by a committee before it becomes our policy. So I think we're just kind of broken.
Dr. Bringman.
The smart snack and school exemption, that's all federal law, I'm guessing now. Is that where the language is coming from? So all well and good, 16-year-old David is very sad that students can't grab a pickle and their orange or purple soda from the cheerleaders on the way out to the bus, as I did every single day. So just gonna cry inside over that not being an experience for other students moving forward. That was my everyday. Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Pour one out.
Continue. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So that, these are, the smart snacks is federally regulated, federal regulatory language. So it's very important that that component is in here. And there are pickle subs, I believe, that you can go get down at the local sub shop, if you like. But lots of great feedback here today. I will say the components of the makeup of the committee, the language does say that there are parents, employees, other staff, students. So it does have a public component to it. Could we be organizing this committee better to reinforce and put that life back into the committee? Yes, 100%. And that is part of the reason why the ownership of the committee has been rewritten in the way that we wrote it. So you do have that wellness coordinator, and then you do have the support components from the other areas, the functional areas of school nutrition, and also physical education too. So those are three key owners to make sure that this committee does have that livelihood that it used to have. But the language does remain that talks about having public folks in this committee. So that remains as it is. We just need to do that better. We got to get better at that. To crystallize that further on the policy side, we can certainly look at doing that and do that in having the wider scope of it's more than just about school nutrition and food. It really is about the whole well-being of the child as a whole. Doing that would trigger then the process of us to bring this back for second read adoption in August, and having time to then convene the committee and review what we would like to change. Might even push that back another month. We'll see how that goes. But if it's the will of the board for us to actually modify the policy, we'll have to bring that back for a second reader in August.
Ms. Grabowski.
I'd certainly think it's worth taking the time to have that opportunity. And I was emailing somebody about the Wellness Center and went to look on the website, and we don't even have a description of what the Wellness Center is yet on our website. I'm sure that's under the works, but I think just kind of understanding better what the Wellness Center is even intended to do and how this committee also supports the Wellness Center, because it's a new initiative, might be something else. And I don't know if that's a policy or regulation, but I just think that's another component to think about is how this committee is supporting our Wellness Center in its continuing evolution.
Yeah.
And having her as the chair, I think makes a lot of sense
Yes.
coming out of that.
Yes, yes. And then I will throw out as well, and I know Ms. Barlow is here, I believe there is a timely component on the smart snacks aspect of getting this into the regulation with the start of the school year coming. So we would like to have the nod of the board that language is okay as written in the regulation, so we can move forward and post that before the start of the school year. And then we'll come back and fix and broaden the scope of the policy side and bring that back for you for subsequent adoption if that is agreeable.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. This is great. Now I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Great. All right. Yes. Okay, thank you, Sean. sir.
Hello, how's everyone?
How are you?
Now, if I'm not mistaken, we're going back to the presentation from this morning, or we're going ahead with the agenda?
Yes,
We are.
please.
Just making sure.
Yes.
I'm going to run through briefly a presentation regarding fund balance, our general fund balance, as we are where we are today and potential options for the future. In the past, we talked about the difference between the minimum unassigned fund balance, in which we try to keep no less than 2 months of expenditures, and then we have a board policy that addresses a fund balance deficiency. The board policy DCL addresses that fund balance. If we go over 5 months, we should put together a plan for the utilizing excess fund balance, which can consist of adding additional staff, other non-recurring expenditures, even transferring excess funds to a separate capital accumulation fund, or return excess funds to unallocated fund balance, to the unallocated general fund. As we look at the general fund, just a little update here, looking at the general fund as of June 30th, where we're projected to be right at $192.7 million. We have to look at what we consider unassigned due to board policy and action. Last year, we assigned fund balance for textbook adoptions, so there's about $13.5 million left in purchases that we have to make for the textbook adoption, and we did adopt the FY25 budget with an $8.2 million use of fund balance. So that brings our available unassigned fund balance down to $170 million. We look at the adopted budget for FY25 for the general fund, which was $622 million. So according to board policy, our two months minimum should be $103.6 million, and that difference is where we are above the $103 million, looking at the 2 months minimum. If you look at our target, we've always talked about having a target of 3 months, and we're pretty much on target for the 3 months. Calculated, it should be 155.5. There's a difference of about $15 million that we're over. But if you look at the maximum amount of 5 months, which is $259 million, we're $88.2 million below that number. Here's an update. We first presented this at the board retreat with some possible fund balance usage options. The first is facilities maintenance and operations. We have some expenditures there, and we'll talk a little bit about those more in the next slide. Audio enhancements for FY25 and FY26. We've already made some enhancements for the 2 years prior, but we have a couple more years we want to look at. Capital projects deferred maintenance. This has always been a topic, has been a topic probably the last 10 or 15 years or so. We've talked more recently about long-range facilities plan, phase 2, and that proposed amount of $20 million there. One of the things we've talked about more in the last year or so is looking for land in West Chatham County for purchase and development, not only for new schools, for the transportation department. So we want to set aside possibly $25 million for that. And we also want to keep in mind possibly some strategic plan initiatives that may come up within the next year or so. It could be in the line, for instance, transportation, if you want to do some additional sign-on bonuses or incentives for transportation, or any other strategic plan initiatives that may come up during the school year. So that total of just options that we've looked at, that staff has looked at, totals about $85.2 million. To get more into the maintenance and operation, they have some annual costs that they incur, $500,000 for HVAC, plumbing. We need to do some fire alarm system upgrades. Those of you have been involved with conversations about ground maintenance and artificial turf services and deferred maintenance backlog. Now, their deferred maintenance is not the same type we've been talking about with capital projects, which is more long range. Their deferred maintenance are actually projects that they really have on hold. They're the emergency repairs and the backlog of maintenance repair items that they need to take care of. Here before you is the audio enhancement schedule for FY24. We took care of in FY24 budget. The FY25 and FY26 projects are listed. As you can see, we're estimating about $6.6 million for FY25 and $3.6 million for FY26. As far as capital projects, we've taken some recent board actions to do some backup generators at some schools. The list below in the circles, we did a $3 million transfer that covered the 7 facilities where we put backup generators. We've also put generators at 16 facilities to help us with the food service aspect of for kitchen freezers and coolers. And we've also put backup generators for infrastructure and long-term preventive maintenance at those same 23 schools. The $10 million is an additional investment to add additional schools to that pool that we currently have. The deferred maintenance, we currently budget about $4.5 million per year that we transfer from the general fund to capital projects, but we know we have a need for additional projects out there, additional funds, so we want to, at some point, add about $7.5 million per year for that particular purpose. And like I said, for the capital projects to deferred maintenance, those are those items that are more replacement, say for instance, replacement of a HVAC system and not the repair of a HVAC system, as an example. The graph below is on this particular chart just gives you a visual of where we plan to use some of that $85 million, which was from the chart earlier. And at this point, any questions?
Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you for this summary and digest. I have just a question about the audio enhancement. I believe I do. The 2024 audio enhancement on slide 7, we did that from fund balance. We did that from fund balance for 2024?
Correct.
Okay. And forgive me for not remembering that. And so I have this question. Everything that refers to something that has a plug or runs on electricity, I automatically want to think technology, and I automatically want to look at Mr. Feliciano's eSplosh money. So just for the sake of my understanding, can you tell me how these items are not part of the communications, communications enhancement, technology advancements and stuff that we have in our eSplosh funds, kind of why they are different in such a way that we're doing it through fund balance. And fund balance is a good place because it's a one-time expenditure. But again, I always want to spend Mr. Feliciano's money, so can you tell me why?
I will defer to my support team as we talk about the technology piece, the maintenance, and the capital projects piece. Mr. Feliciano.
So part of this initiative here was funded through eSplosh, through capital projects. It was separate from the technology initiatives we had because our funding is more for instructional, for the infrastructure, for the devices on that side of the house. So as they continue to deploy, this is like a multi-system that connects different entities. So when you're talking about safety, PA systems, bell systems, vaping systems, so it ties a lot of systems together. It's very comprehensive. So that initiative was taken over by capital projects to lead. That's why the funding is separate.
Okay. Oh, so, but you said if it was taken over by them to lead, did it originate in data and
Capital
accountability?
projects. It did not originate in data and accountability.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, my question is pertaining to maintenance and operations with the plumbing and fire alarm systems. Are all of these jobs outsourced? And if they are, will we save more by hiring out people to work internally as opposed to externally with the plumbing and fire
Yes, I
alarm,
will have
HVAC?
the Director, James May, respond.
Yes, ma'am. As far as the plumbing is concerned, a lot of our expenditures and costs come with the emergency calls that we have after hours. We do have call-out personnel that can respond, but a lot of times we need some specialized equipment, and we use our local approved vendors to back us up on a lot of the emergency calls. So that, and we've had some significant expenditures this year with plumbing issues throughout the district. And I didn't catch the second part of your question, ma'am.
Well, I was asking about all of the things that are outlined on slide 6, HVAC, plumbing, fire alarms. I understand grounds and maintenance, we do outsource those, but all these positions that's mentioned, are they all externally providing services for us?
Yes, ma'am. And as far as the fire alarm system upgrades, that is an initiative that was started at the beginning of I want to say it was somewhere between 23 and 24, and we're going through the entire district and upgrading fire alarm systems throughout the district. And with that, with those upgrades, we're also experiencing some of our older systems are failing as we're going through the upgrade of those systems. And because of the systems that are failing, like in the case of Puller Elementary School, we have an older system in there, and finding parts for these things are very, very difficult for the replacement. And so a lot of times we have to put in temporary systems to make sure that the schools stay, functional, or we have to go in and do a wholesale replacement and move the school up and ahead in the schedule.
Oh.
Anyone else?
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Mr. Kachmar and then Ms. Grabowski.
So general philosophy on fund balance, I know 2 months is our minimum. I've always wanted us to have 3 to 4.
Right.
Just because if a hurricane comes and we have to clear 60 sites, it's going to cost us more than 2 months. So I'm okay with somewhere between 3 and 4. I also prefer, to the point where I probably wouldn't support ongoing expenses, but if it's a one-time spend, I'd much prefer that. And then looking at those priorities and thinking about East Blost, our biggest priority on that list in my mind is what we're doing out in West Chatham. And then many of the smaller items on there can be East Blost items. So in my mind, if we budget up to 25 million of fund balance for West Chatham, whatever's left, we can use for some of the smaller projects, but it's also 25 million we're not spending from East Blost, which means we can use IT money from East Blost to do audio enhancements.
Right.
It also means we can use East Blost money to do the maintenance and operations upgrades and things like that. So we're saving the 25 million from East Blost. We can do a lot of the smaller projects. The other issue is many of those projects were budgeted 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and sub costs have gone up 50%, material costs have gone up 60%. So I'd rather have a $25 million cushion in East Blost, not spend East Blost money on land, use fund balance to buy land, and then we have more flexibility with our East Blost budget.
Yes. Thank you. And that was one of the goals when we started looking at it. We didn't want to, as you noticed, there is a agenda item that's later on where we want to use part of it. We did not want to use too much from fund balance all at one time, so we're looking at possibly enough to do 1.5 years worth of work, with the goal of there may not be enough money in the current ESPLOST to fund these items, because most of that's budgeted, but we're looking at a place order or something that'll fill that gap until we can put a E5 referendum out there and hopefully get passed. Then down the road, 2 or 3 years from now, some of these additional expenditures we can pick up in ESPLOST 5.
Ms. Grabowski, then Hoskins Brown.
So I certainly agree with Mr. Kachmar as far as philosophically having at least 3 months of fund balance. I'm surprised he didn't talk about deferred maintenance. I was expecting him to. But piggybacking on Dr. Howard Hall's question about, plumbing, when we're having to call in outside vendors after hours at pretty substantial cost for issues that if we had addressed those issues proactively, we'd be saving that money because we wouldn't have to make those calls. I'd certainly support addressing those issues rather than letting them linger. When we look at things like HVAC, that's, to me, a pretty high priority where we have HVAC systems that have failed. We certainly need to prioritize those. Life safety, fire alarm system upgrades, that's one of those things that it's kind of hard to spend money on because you don't see the immediate benefit, but we know how critically important those are because we would not want to be in the unfortunate situation of a system like that failing when we needed it most. So I would certainly, and I think that the audio enhancements, those are great improvements for our schools, and I'm glad that we're pursuing those, but to me, those are a lower priority than some of these deferred maintenance and life safety issues that I think we need to address sooner rather than later.
Dr. Hoskins Brown, then Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I'm really glad that Mr. Kachmar pointed out the idea of procuring land with fund balance. I've been talking with the superintendent about this for some time, and I've been telling her I see a school in fund balance. Like, I don't want to see little projects as much as I want to see something big and tangible. I understand the proposal, the things that have been presented represent some of the other criteria that we make for fund balance, that it's not a recurring cost. And so I'm glad that we've done that. But I would be very amenable to seeing the kind of planning that Mr. Kachmar has laid out, because I recognize while fund balance could hold a whole school, that's it, if it were used in that way. But to strategically pair land acquisition with construction using what we hope would be a successful E5, to me, that would be a really effective use of those funds.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, West Chatham land, as we know, I've talked about it a couple times. I know I've talked to the superintendent about it since the day she became superintendent, pretty much. I'm glad that it's getting traction. I am very much looking forward to seeing where this land will eventually be.
Me too.
And I know Dr. Howard Hall is as well. Yeah, so and I'm sorry that I will not be a part of the board once to help with when E5 gets voted on and everything else. But I will be, whenever this happens, wherever this happens, please let me know. I'll be there at the ribbon cutting. But I really do like Mr. Kachmar's idea about using the $25 million for the land, because there are ways to use the ESPLOST for these other funds. And I just, the more we can do to leverage what we have with ESPLOST funds and with the fund balance, the better we're going to be in the long run. And I would love to have, 4.5 months worth in fund balance. However, we have immediate needs that we need now, especially with how where the growth is within our school system. Yes, people may always mention that our numbers are going down, but if you, overall, yes, but we have pockets where we're having extreme growth, and no matter what we do, we can't keep up. So this shows that we are being reactive, but we're being proactive by where the money's coming from.
Anyone else? Continue, sir.
Thank you all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Here before you, we have our financials for year-to-date May, which was 92% of the fiscal year, but 100% of the school year. Here in our general fund, our property taxes through May, we collected 99% of the budget compared to 96% last year. The total general fund revenues, we've collected 96% of our modified budget, which is about where we were the same time last year. Our general fund expenditures for our teachers, we were at 89% of our budget compared to our expected 92% by this time of the year. And our support salaries, we were at 79.9% compared to expected range between 90 to 92%. Our total general fund actual expenditures, we were at 81.8% compared to our budget. This time last year, we were at 77% of the budget. For our other fund that we talk about is our school nutrition. School nutrition through May, we were at a loss of $1.9 million. We have put in the funds that we had budgeted from general funds to compensate the losses with school nutrition. But however, we've got school nutrition fund balance that we intend to transfer funds from at the end of this year to cover the losses for this year. Have any questions on either Fund 100 or school nutrition or any of our funds?
Remind me when we get our final reconciliation for total year-end budget.
When will we get it?
When will we know, here's what our total revenues and expenditures were last year? When do we finalize that?
We will finalize June next month, but then we go through our year-end audit, and that will be completed around the October 1st of November time period.
2 years ago, when we were finalizing the budget, we had a debate about, hey, we're going to collect more than we thought, so we should cut the millage rate a little bit. And it was too speculative at that point, so the board wasn't willing to modify the millage rate to make up for the different collection. And then we got some of that information last October, maybe, and we're like, there was an additional collection. So I'm going to call Mr. Brinkman out as chair of that committee. If we can get final budget numbers when we start doing our budget process this fall, so we actually can reconcile, here's what we budgeted, here's what our revenues and expenditures actually were.
Okay.
Because not having that correlated data is what's led to our fund balance.
Right.
And if we can manage that better, I'd rather be closer to maintaining our 3 to 4 month goal rather than every few years saying, oh, we're up to 5 or 6 months now, and now we got to do something with the money. So we just need to tie that information together, I think.
At one of our finance meetings.
Dr. Hoskins Brown.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I just have a question about Department of Defense and workers' comp. Normally with the Department of Defense, the account 482, junior JROTC, 482. Some years we make an after-the-fact correction for the salaries that we actually pay and the salaries that the Department of Defense has authorized for our ROTC folks. Do we anticipate that happening this year, or when does that happen? Or
We don't expect that to happen this year. We have gotten in better sync.
Oh, great.
Where we're getting the reimbursements from them on a monthly basis, so they are recorded each month.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, that's cool. And then the other thing is, this sounds like a misnomer. What is excess workers' compensation?
And that's 600, the unemployment.
The Fund 690 is the workers' comp, but there was someplace else in our packet where we were talking about, where we referred to the term excess workers' compensation. And is that something related to something that we pay out more than we planned when we have workers' comp claims, or is it workers' comp that we've retained that we didn't have to pay out? I just wasn't familiar with what that was.
Yes and yes.
Oh, okay, great. I guess. Don't Beach High School.
Those are our funds. We actually do a calculation with each pay period where we've got a certain percentage based on our salaries for the month that's set aside for our workman's comp claims, because we are self-funded with that. So we have the monies that we put aside each month for that. They accumulate, and then as we have workers' comp claims, they are paid out of that. So the net difference is our excess.
Oh, I got it. Okay, I didn't understand it. So we self-insure our workers' comp. We put some aside in case there's a filing. If there's not, then we have some left at the end of the year. Then if we have it left at the end of the year, where does that go? Does that fund balance?
It stays
Oh, it just
in.
stays in?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, where are we with closing out our federal grant, which closes out on the 30th of September? I know that there were several vacancies, especially with Title I. So where are we with that? Did they do a lot of budget transfers during the summer to assist with summer learning? Since they can't put that in a reserve and it has to be, at least 85% has to be expended.
Right. Our accounting team's looking at each one of our grants. We had some of them that closed on June 30th, and then you're right, some of them are on September 30th. So in the months in between, those adjustments are being made based on summer school expenses and some other monies being transferred that should have been to the grant. We're working with the grant managers and the academic team to make those adjustments.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, continue.
Thank you. That's it, unless we have any other questions.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have agenda item 8.02, Cisco Collaboration Flex License. This is just a contract renewal. The Division of Data and Accountability desires to renew the subscription for Cisco Collaboration Flex License for Process Information Systems Incorporated as provided under the statewide contract for a total of 3 years. Cisco Collaboration Flex License provides technical support and upgrades to the district's 2 communication managers, 2 call centers, and the IP phones. Staff now recommends exercising the renewal option to continue services provided by using Cisco Collaboration Flex license at an estimated total cost of $709,398.42. This will be paid from East Plus 4. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the renewal purchase of Cisco Collaboration Flex license from Process Information Systems Incorporated under statewide contract number SWC 99999 SPD T 201-20501-0006 for an estimated total cost of $709,398.48.
Moved? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
The next item is 8.02, the Palo Alto Security Software Purchase, NASPO Value Point Contract. The Division of Data and Accountability desires to purchase Palo Alto firewalls for security software to ensure the security of district's assets and information. The purchase will replace our existing firewalls and will be made from layer 3 communications by utilizing the award NASPO contract, AR 3229. The total cost of this software is $871,712.66. The funding source is actually coming from ARP. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the use of NASP Value Point contract to purchase Palo Alto firewall solutions from Layer 3 Communications at a total cost of $871,712.66. All righty then. There's that firewall, yep. They got us. We've been hacked.
Don't say that.
I know.
Don't say that. Don't say that. So moved. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Second.
Oh, I can see it from here. I got the security line. I can see that. Okay. Thanks.
It's too hot to stay in here, y'all. It's too hot to stay in here.
Testing, testing.
Don't pay for any extra services.
Yay, daylight.
Mm-hmm.